Today we're going to take a look at the ARCHMAGE's generic lore type for the High Elves. Interesting item on them, this here Armor of Stars, gives stock and Unspottable. Rider of Rohan currently using that on the Eagle, which is interesting that you can take that on an Eagle. Stock, Unspottable, Flying Caster. This time Lore of Heavens. We'll be taking a look at a Lore of Metal replay as well, but here we're going to see Lore of Heavens utilized against the Tomb Kings. Got a Noble, some Silver Helms, bunch of White Lion Infantry, some Rangers, Archers, and so on. For the Tomb Kings here, we've got two caskets. One of them is Kotep, and did you know, I did not know about this, learn something new every day, but Uranus Thunderbolt, I think that's the Overcast one, I want to say, can actually just one-shot caskets, which Kotep is now in severe danger, and the Armor Star is still active, but since she's flying literally directly above, I mean, they can spot her, since it's basically like being right next to them. But definitely quite useful item, so she's going to come in here and potentially just clean up both those caskets right off the bat. And yeah, the rest of the High Elves force just pushing up. We've got these Rangers, White Lions, getting ready to mix it up with the Skeleton Infantry, but being able to just come in here and delete value like that, that's pretty interesting, and potentially something that's very useful for like Bretonnia as well. Lore of Heavens is not a super common pick for a lot of factions, but it is a pretty underrated lore. Uranus Thunderbolt can do some hilarious things like this, or Kotep. I mean, he could try and dodge, maybe. I don't know if he really could, but yeah, basically just doesn't quite one-shot him, but just about one-shots him now, using that 62 charge up on the Griffin, Eagle, 420 weapon strength, not bad at all, 46 and 42 in terms of stats, being, you know, that she is a High Elf, only 30 armor, but Eagle has decent stats as a monster. It's not amazing. Tomb King's player understandably going to throw in the towel after getting both the caskets just straight up sniped like that. So yeah, it's a fun interaction there with Uranus Thunderbolt. Thought I'd show that off. And the Armor of Stars too up on the Eagle. I didn't realize she could actually take it on the Eagle. I know you can't on the Dragon for sure. On the Eagle, that's pretty interesting. On the Chariot, which is what we'll be looking at next, you definitely can. But looking at the damage value here, I mean, tons of damage value just on her. You can see clearly from taking out these two caskets, one of which is Sad Boy Kotep himself. Not really too much else to look at because the rest of the battle really didn't play out. It's too much. A little bit of value scattered back and forth here and there. But let's just go ahead and get to the next replay. Did I say metal? I actually meant high magic. Yes, the high Archmage here in the appropriate light blue color scheme looks very fitting for the High Elves. I really do like, though, how the different casters kind of have their own color schemes. It's very neat. I'm a fan of that. But yeah, the Tirnock Chariot mount gives a nice little bonus versus infantry, 64 charge. Not quite the same hitting power as the Eagle as we saw, but the Chariot's good mobility on the ground, good mass. 110 armor is also pretty decent. Does make her decently tanky. Is this actually the Ithilmar Chariot, I want to say? Maybe. I don't think it's the Tirnock. Regardless, this is myself up against Patron Noldor. We've seen myself and him battling a few times recently. Honestly, had some really fun fights with him. We've got some White Lions here, Spearmen, a single Phoenix Guard, couple of Archers. Basically, all of these infantry are going to be threatening to the Bretonnian Knights. Some Reaver blocking detachments here, Questing Knights for Bretonnia, Alberic up in the air, and Lore of Heavens we see again here. Felix for some healing, potentially for Alberic. We've got some Archers, a single Trebuchet, some men-at-arms and peasants and so on. But yeah, the Archmage, the fact that you can take so many different lores of magic makes her a very versatile lord choice. You can really spend not too much on her and get your lord and caster kind of all in one, and then go super wide on your army like this here. Like I said, basically all of these infantry are threatening to Bretonnia's cavalry, which is kind of the idea here. The Phoenix Guard, I'm not super high on. I am planning an overrated unit focus on Phoenix Guard soon. Just spoiler alert. But anyway, we're going to be able to get a big engagement here with these Knights Errant. Questing Knights, kind of catch them in with the Reavers, keep them pinned in for some time. Phoenix Guard will generate some value. Pyramid Company, though, kicking up through the center, have taken some bow fire. We're going to pop them with an Apotheosis, just to keep them, you know, nice and healthy. Likewise, I've got Tempest to try and control Alberic's movements. A little bit of a swing and a miss there on that breath attack. We can manage to get a few Questing Knight models there. It's not completely wasted, but could have been better for sure. My archers are getting crumped in the back line as I just don't really have the numbers to protect them, but at the very least my infantry will trade generally very well here, kind of pushing up and back in the side with some of those spearmen. And this cavalry engagement here, Noldor doing his best to try and pull away with these Knights Errant and Questing Knights. So I'm going to just send the Phoenix Guard after them, kind of continue to pressure. Likewise, the White Lions being tossed in here into these cavalry engagements as well. And this is something you guys have seen me, if you've been watching my recent videos, do a few times with like Marauder Great Weapons, for example. But just in general, I feel like great weapon units, great axes especially, not so much for swords. They have the bonus versus infantry typically, but White Lions, for example, as a great axe unit, just they're kind of generalist AP, and they function much better at supporting cavalry engagements because of some of the mass and kind of bracing changes. So definitely having some White Lions to support against Cav, I think, is a good idea now, especially in a matchup like this, where you're basically guaranteed to face armored Cav. And yeah, Star Dragon getting trapped up here in the center with Felix, got Knights of the Realm. We're going to get the Pure Main Company in there to try and hold that pocket in place. Alberic has received one Tempest, I believe. I'm not 100% sure where he got off to. Looks like he's here, maybe not. But he can heal a bit if he fights near Felix. That will require him coming down to the Pure Main Company. But here we go, actually. I think this is the first Tempest. He gets caught up by that a little bit. My Star Dragon is still taking damage, not from that, but because the poison archers there being slowed, like he's really not able to get that far away from Alberic. Alberic taking a decent amount of damage from that spell, but yeah, it will take me some time. Whoops, and then the animation bugs out. That's just fine. Oh, let's not pay attention to that. Anyway, yeah, Silver and Guard also mixed in here in addition to the Spearmen. I should probably have mentioned that. Also push up in this backline, just kind of winning the infantry fight. That's the nice thing about like Lions and Silver and Guard. Spearmen are decent against Bretonnian infantry, but just in general, the infantry fight, like the quality very much goes in your favor. Star Dragon fighting Felix. Unfortunately, Caragul's not actually a Dragon Slayer sword. It's just kind of a Morgor Slayer sword, more or less, which it would be fun to see some changes on that potentially. Make it more in line with the lore. But Apotheosis there on the Star Dragon, trying to keep the big boy sustained. If we check in with the Chariot lady herself, only got 9 kills. I've been trying to support infantry fights as best I can. 800 damage value, a lot of that coming from the Tempest on Alberic, but as long as she can kind of stay healthy here and stay away from Alberic, who's currently focused rightly on the Star Dragon, then she can continue to operate here. Alberic pops back in the air just in time for another Tempest, although again, my Star Dragon can't really get away due to the poison. At least we'll be able to deal some damage with that excellent spell from Lore of High Magic. Definitely a key kind of anti-air spell in a lot of matchups, and this is one where Bretonnia definitely has powerful flying units. Meanwhile, she comes in here, going to mix it up with the peasants a little bit, maybe get a hit or two on Alberic. Try and pull through some of these archers and so on. She has decent splash and anti-infantry on the Chariot, so it's a nice little tool there. Comet of Cassandora, unfortunately a little bit misplaced. I haven't really been highlighting it too much, but the White Lions here have been doing a great job supporting these Cav fights. I guess I talked about it a little bit, but I haven't really shown it up close. The Pure Main Company in particular, I'm a huge fan of right now. The Armor Sundering just helps your other units trade a little bit more effectively, and, you know, they have really nice stats, to be honest. 45 attack, 36 defense isn't amazing, but, I mean, granted, that's even without their martial prowess, right? So with martial prowess, they actually have really nice stats. And yeah, like I said, Armor Sundering, really good. Their leadership is fantastic. They're kind of like cheaper Swordmasters, but that are better against more targets. Like, Swordmasters are definitely better against infantry specifically, but the Pure Main Company, I feel, just kind of generally are good against all targets. Basically, they're kind of a nice Swiss Army knife type unit with their AP and just kind of good overall stats, armor, everything. Anyway, this is mostly about the Archmage, who's again popped her Armor of Stars. I've been using that to try and hide from Alberic as much as possible as well. The Star Dragon's coming back, though. Alberic had taken a few bad RNG hits there in a very close engagement that unfortunately was off-screen. And you can see the balance power is slightly in my favor, but I've still got to be careful. Felix is a danger, so I'm going to drop down, try and get rid of him with the Star Dragon. Alberic then makes a very bold and daring countercharge, which is certainly very brave, but the Chariot does have mass, so I can kind of charge in here, block him up, hopefully keep him pinned against the Star Dragon. The Damsel comes over, but unfortunately, Alberic buys the farm there. Star Dragon can get that apotheosis, and you can see as soon as Albric fell, that put a pretty decisive dent in the balance of power. There were still quite a few infantry units left with some HP, but it was very close, very well played in Noldor, and yeah, fun one. The high magic is just a fantastic lore of magic, and not only that, but you have, you know, life, metal, heavens, fire, all of the common lores basically, plus high magic, right? Which all of them have their merits. There's use cases for many of them. Which one's the best? It's hard to say. Definitely, I would say high magic and life magic are probably the ones you'll see most commonly because they're pretty competitive. But at the same time, I mean, if you want to take a life caster, usually just take a Lariel because she's kind of a better healer in a way. The metal mage is one I'm a big fan of personally. Just because the High Elves' general lack of AP you can kind of circumvent on specific targets. Metal also just has some other fantastic spells in general, but Heavens and High Magic definitely both decent. Also, Fire obviously has a lot of synergy with High Elves, but yeah, definitely did decently here between the damage to Albric and some work on the Chariot. Very solid, and like I said, this build, kind of the idea with the infantry is everything is threatening to most knights, right? And have to say, the Phoenix Guard got caught by a giant wave there. I don't know if you guys saw that, but Noldor did a great job kind of neutralizing them. Pure Main Company, though, 1,600 damage value, 11,000 damage dealt, 148 kills, absolute MVPs here. And Archers, despite getting run over, did largely pay for themselves. Reavers, one of them definitely paid for themselves. Star Dragon almost did, but also tanked out quite a bit of damage. Albric, likewise. Interestingly, I thought he had more, because he did a lot of damage to the Star Dragon. I would think that he'd have more damage value from that, but I'm not really sure. Felix did pretty decent considering how cheap his kit is. Infantry is a little bit of an issue in this matchup, I find. Like, actually, one Pox Arrow. That must have done a lot of the damage to the Star Dragon. And Peasant MVPs there. Questing Knights getting their value, absolutely. Huge fan of them. At least one unit. Yeah, these other ones, like Knights Errant, it's not too hard for them to pay for themselves. One of them largely did. The Knights did have not a ton of great targets to go after, necessarily. But definitely a fun one. Just to finish up about the ARCHMAGE, though. You have a wide variety. This is just two of, you know, many lores of magic that you can choose from, right, with these gals. And mount choices, you've got your typical boring horse, although she is incredibly cheap on this mount. It's pretty vulnerable. The Chariot at least gives you a good amount of armor, decent speed, and yeah, it's a little bit of anti-infantry power. You can still take this Armor of Stars here, and you'll see when I pop up to the dragon, that disappears, right? And I can no longer select that. So the dragon is pretty expensive to bring her on, just kind of doing a comparison. A couple of kind of comparable lords, and one we've seen a few times recently is the Chaos Sorcerer Lord. Is probably one of the better kind of generic caster lords in the game. Mount choices are good. No Chariot mount choice, but the Manticore, I would say, is certainly superior to the Eagle. Eagle's even more points, which is kind of funny. But the Manticore causes terror. I mean, Eagle is a little bit faster, but we see here Manticore, more weapon strength. Stats are going to be worse with martial prowess, which they do retain on the Eagle, but a little bit slower speed, obviously. Way more armor, though. Yeah, a little bit more HP, too. Manticore is definitely just a better monster overall. But the Dragon mount here, 1,400 you pay for Chaos, 1,750 you pay for the Moon Dragon, which I would argue is probably about the same power level as a Chaos Dragon. Like, Moon Dragons and Chaos Dragons are pretty comparable comparison. That's great. Anyway, yeah, and as a result, the Chaos Dragon seems a lot more appealing as a mount choice. Like, you can actually make this work sometimes. It's pretty tough to make her work on a Moon Dragon. Only 60 armor. I mean, you've got decent stats overall, but still a little bit risky to take, unless you're taking like a life one who can heal herself or another life caster sides. And honestly, a lot of the time it's better to just, rather than spending that much on a mount choice, just take a Star Dragon or something else separately. The Eagle, though, is a pretty decent one, decently cost-effective. The Chariot also you can run quite cheap. And like I said, Shadows, Beasts, Metal. Oh, by the way, quick note about Lore of Beasts. You shouldn't take it as a High Elves ever now, because they went and changed this, which for flavor's sake is great, but the fact that it's the same Winds of Magic cost and you just don't have Manticore summons now. It's really, actually very bad for High Elves, and Wood Elves at least have Durthu to still summon Manticores, but High Elves, you don't have any access to Manticore summons anymore, which basically makes Lore of Beasts kind of useless, arguably. Summoning a Great Eagle is okay, but for that much Winds of Magic, yeah, and not having access to the Manticore, which gave you a cheap way to get a Terror unit. High Elves don't have a lot of cheap Terror units. Their cheapest Terror unit's $13.50 for the Flamespire, which is not amazingly cheap. So it is pretty painful. Just a note of that, I guess, broadly talking about High Elves magic, but you do have Beasts. It's still there, technically. Death also, you can do some things with that if you want to be boring. Life also is boring, kind of. Light is pretty interesting, actually. The Immunopsychology is not so important, but definitely Nets can be very strong for High Elves, obviously. I'm a big fan of Baroness Time Warp as well. Generally, you don't need extra attack or defense, depending on the matchup with High Elves, because you already have, like, on par, probably the best attack and defense in the game on average. But still can be nice for some big burst timing pushes, especially on, like, high defensive positions, say against dwarfs maybe. Fire, like I said, synergizes with a lot of stuff, so this is probably one you could make really good use of, for sure. Heavens also, we saw some memery there, so hopefully you guys enjoyed that one. If you do like this sort of content, be sure to like and subscribe. I have a couple of interim videos to record while I'm waiting on my new monitor, but once that arrives, you should see the full glory of this new 3080 that I'm recording this on, so let me know how it looks down in the comments below. If you made it this far, thanks again, see you next time.